The Fremont High School anti-ICE protest incident on January 29, 2026 has become a glaring textbook example of how media outlets can deliberately twist facts into outright falsehoods, raising serious and urgent questions about legal liability for defamation and libel. In the immediate aftermath of the event, Nebraska's entire media machine, including major TV stations like WOWT Channel 6, CAM-TV Channel 3, and KETV Channel 7, radio stations such as KFAB, and newspapers like the Omaha World-Herald, blasted sensational headlines and stories claiming the juvenile driver of the red SUV struck, or accelerated into a female student protester. This uniform portrayal painted the driver as a clear aggressor who was disrupting a peaceful demonstration and endangering innocent participants. Yet, according to undeniable video evidence from multiple angles and the official police citations that followed, the female protester ran directly into the moving SUV, causing the unavoidable accident and her own injuries. The driver was only cited for leaving the scene, a completely justifiable action amid a hostile mob that was yelling threats, physically hitting the vehicle, and stealing his Trump 2024 flag. No charges were ever filed for hitting or assaulting anyone, highlighting the media's rush to judgment and their failure to align with the facts. This blatant and repeated discrepancy begs the critical question: when can media be sued or held liable for lying? In the United States, defamation, which includes libel for published or broadcast statements, occurs when outlets spread false statements of fact that harm an individual's reputation, leading to tangible damages like emotional distress or public harassment. For a private individual like the juvenile driver in this case, proving negligence, meaning the media failed to exercise even basic reasonable care in verifying the facts before publishing, could be sufficient to establish liability in most states. However, in public interest cases like this politically charged protest involving immigration policies and student rights, the higher bar of actual malice often applies, requiring proof that the media published the statement knowing it was false or with reckless disregard for whether it was true or not. Here, the media outlets had immediate access to the videos that clearly showed the protester darting into the path, yet they sensationalized the story anyway, siding overtly with the left-leaning anti-ICE protesters over any attempt at unbiased journalism. Conceptually, this absolutely opens the door to liability. Reports implying deliberate aggression were not just biased, but potentially defamatory lies, causing real reputational harm to a teen through widespread threats, doxing, and stigma that could last a lifetime. Successful suits, like those seen in similar high-profile cases, could force settlements, retractions, or even court-ordered apologies to rectify the damage. But this incident goes far beyond mere legal thresholds. It's a blatant case of outright media bias, where outlets gaslight the public by insisting on a fabricated narrative that was directly contradicted by the very footage they aired or linked to in their stories. Terms like narrative bias or presentation bias perfectly describe how they selectively framed the driver as at fault, using loaded language to emphasize aggression while downplaying or entirely omitting the mob's role or the protesters' own actions in running into traffic. Spin comes into play as they highlighted aspects that favored one interpretation, such as the protester as a victim, while ignoring exonerating details. Bias by omission was rampant as they failed to include or emphasize key elements from the video, like the crowd's threats and physical attacks on the vehicle. Confirmation bias in journalism explains how reporters interpreted or selected evidence to confirm their pre-existing left-leaning views, such as anti-Trump or pro-immigrant sentiments. In stronger instances, this borders on propaganda, deliberately shaping stories to influence opinion, though intent is hard to prove outright. Colloquially, it's pure gaslighting, repeatedly insisting on a version like driver hit protester that contradicts what people can plainly see in the video, making viewers question their own perception and reality. This term, increasingly used in critiques of polarized media coverage during events like protests, captures the psychological manipulation where reporting denies obvious visuals to push an agenda eroding public trust in the process. The parallels to the 2019 Lincoln Memorial confrontation with Nicholas Sandmann are uncanny and illuminating, showing a recurring pattern of media malice against young individuals associated with conservative symbols. In that case, initial reports from major outlets like CNN, The Washington Post, and NBC portrayed the MAGA hat-wearing teen as smirking, blocking, and harassing Native American activist Nathan Phillips during a peaceful Indigenous Peoples March, fueling massive outrage and even death threats. Viral clips drove the narrative, but full footage later revealed crucial context. Sandmann's group had been taunted with slurs by a separate group, and Phillips approached the students while drumming, with Sandmann standing passively rather than aggressively confronting anyone. The early narrative shifted dramatically once this evidence surfaced, exposing the media's rush to vilify. Similarly, in Fremont's red SUV incident, another pro-Trump symbol-bearing teen, the driver was framed as harassing protesters' constitutional rights, when in reality he was fleeing threats from a chaotic mob. Video reversed the narrative entirely, showing no intentional hit on the driver's part, yet media persisted in their biased assault. This could inspire analogous lawsuits, provable harm from biased reports contradicting evidence, especially when targeting a minor who faced no charges for the alleged aggression. Sandmann's suits for hundreds of millions secured confidential but substantial settlements, proving that when media crosses into reckless falsehoods, accountability is possible. Regarding defamation lawsuits in the Sandmann case, the teen sued multiple outlets like CNN, The Washington Post, and NBC for hundreds of millions, alleging they falsely portrayed him as a racist aggressor who instigated the confrontation. He reached confidential settlements with CNN in 2020 after suing for $275 million, The Washington Post in 2020 after $250 million, and NBC in 2021 without public admissions of fault or disclosed amounts. These came after courts allowed portions of the cases to proceed, though others against ABC, CBS, The New York Times, Gannett, and Rolling Stone were dismissed on First Amendment grounds, with appeals failing up to the Supreme Court declining review in 2024. The Fremont case could conceptually follow this path if the driver or guardian, since he's a juvenile, proves false factual statements like driver hit protester, implying aggression and fault, combined with harm to reputation from the resulting threats and stigma. However, media would defend by claiming reliance on initial evidence like police call logs describing a pedestrian hit, partial clips, and witness statements arguing substantial truth since contact did occur, even if causation was disputed. Settlements in Sandmann were likely to avoid trial risks, not necessarily full proof of defamation, but the parallels, initial aggressive portrayal reversed by video and police outcomes, could encourage similar action if provable harm exists, though defamation remains notoriously hard to win against media due to high constitutional standards. The ramifications of adults in these media positions abusing their power through personal or ideological bias are profound, offensive, and deeply damaging to society as a whole. Grown men and women, reporters, anchors, editors, producers, and executives weaponize their platforms against a vulnerable teenager, directing bias-fueled attacks for ulterior motives that prioritized sensationalism and agenda-pushing over truth. Nebraska media, with its pervasive left-leaning slant, prioritized fitting a pro-immigrant narrative over facts, evident in their uniform blame of the driver despite the mob's aggression, threats, and the protesters' run into traffic. This power imbalance exposes juveniles to undue and lasting harm, including doxing, harassment, and reputational damage that could affect their future opportunities in education or employment. It erodes public trust in institutions, as viewers witness adults in powerful roles using their positions for ideological alignment, corporate-driven sensationalism for clicks and views, or narrative control rather than objective reporting. This pattern, adults in media, education, or politics targeting teens based on bias, reinforces division, influencing public opinion to view one side as villains, the driver as aggressor against protests, while excusing the other crowd hostility, reckless actions. In juvenile matters, where no felony charges were filed and citations were minor, persistent negative framing can stigmatize a teen long after resolution, affecting mental health and chilling free expression for young people associated with certain views, like pro-Trump symbols. Ownership reveals the corporate rot behind it all, showing how consolidated power enables widespread bias and potential collusion. These outlets are not independent. They are puppets controlled by massive conglomerates dominated by investment giants like BlackRock, Vanguard Group, and State Street Corporation, which hold significant stakes, often 15 to 20%, in the parent companies. Gray Television owns WOWT, Channel 6, EW Scripps owns KMTV, Channel 3, Hearst owns KTV, Channel 7. iHeartMedia owns KFAB Radio, and Lee Enterprises owns the Omaha World Herald, plus other Nebraska titles like the Lincoln Journal-Star, Fremont Tribune, and Scottsbluff Star-Herald. This structure allows for indirect coordination, where corporate controllers push unified narratives through ownership layers, promoting social ideals that benefit their agendas, such as pro-immigrant labor for cheap workforce scams in Nebraska's key industries. The result is cookie-cutter bias. Reporters, hired and trained in this culture, inherently know to report, in a certain way, slanting stories to cast the white driver as the villain hitting innocent protesters, stirring national narratives on social media and beyond. It's a coordinated effort, whether through direct corporate directives or the echo chamber culture, to skew public opinion and maintain power. Compounding the media's fraud were Nebraska's idiot politicians, Governor Jim Pillen, Senators Pete Ricketts and Deb Fischer, Representatives Mike Flood, Adrian Smith, and Don Bacon, who echoed the same inaccuracies in coordinated statements, further amplifying the lies. They had full access to the video evidence, but condemned the driver as a perpetrator of political violence or assault, with Bacon explicitly demanding accountability for using their vehicle to assault a legal protester. These conservatives are complete frauds, tied to the same investment corporations and industries profiting from immigrant labor, using this incident to subtly advance pro-immigrant narratives while pretending to arbitrate morally. Their financial backers, linked to the BlackRock Vanguard web, push open border policies to keep labor costs low in agriculture, meatpacking, and construction. This intertwined network creates a synergy of lies. Politicians issue prepared statements promoting the narrative, media amplifies them in stories, and both disguise hidden motives to protect economic interests. Conclusion: shattering the fake news facade. Nebraska's fake news and political elite must fall. Nebraska's media and political establishment stands as a disgusting monument to fraud, exposed raw in the Fremont incident. These fake news frauds, stupid, performative actors devoid of intellect, watched videos proving the protesters' reckless run into the SUV, yet lied relentlessly, over-exaggerating for agendas tied to pro-immigrant labor scams and investor profits. No intellect, no analysis, just echo chamber idiocy dictated by BlackRock, Vanguard, and their ilk controlling outlets through ownership and politicians through funding. They sensationalized a benign accident into a scandal, siding with left-leaning protesters while attacking a teen driver who faced no charges for hitting anyone, all to stir division and maintain corporate power. Idiot officials like Pillen, Ricketts, Fisher, Flood, Smith, and Bacon amplified the deceit with scripted condemnations, betraying their conservative facade for hidden allegiances to cheap labor empires. This coordinated assault on a juvenile, without evidence or charges, abused power to manipulate opinion, endanger lives, and protect investor interests. No corrections, no apologies, just slink away, leaving destruction and stigma. This indictment demands revolution. Sue the media for defamation, probe politicians' ties, dismantle corporate control. Nebraska's citizens deserve truth, not this complicit corruption. Crush the machine, expose, defund, replace these inadequate frauds. The Fremont fiasco isn't an anomaly, it's the system. Real free news rises when fake falls. Empower independent voices to dismantle this web of lies and restore integrity to reporting and governance. Only through unrelenting accountability can Nebraska break free from this fraudulent elite and protect its youth from future manipulations.